Hello everybody, I hope you're comfortable because today in this video I'm going to be talking about the design decisions made in Nick Johnasso's Sabrina and how they play into the themes of the story. The three main aspects of design I will focus on are panel design, color, and drawing style. Before I jump fully into the design aspects, I want to provide a short summary of the story. This will be useful in fully understanding the design choices that were made. In this story, we are following a boyfriend named Teddy who has to grapple with his girlfriend, Sabrina's, missingness and later murder. Teddy moves in with a childhood friend, Calvin, in Colorado. Calvin is a boundary technician with the Air Force, and this will come up again later. The murder of Sabrina leads to a large influx of conspiracy theories on the internet, and this aids in the paranoia of the story itself. At the end of the story, Calvin leaves Colorado with a job promotion, and Teddy begins working at the local animal shelter in Colorado. It is a great story, but it's a boring one. This theme present in this story is emotional isolation. And like I said, it is a boring story, and that is exactly the point of it. This is a big thing that we'll be talking about in this video. The first design decision I want to talk about is the drawing style utilized within the story. This style is officially known as ligne claire and was popularized by Hergé's Tintin. The style utilizes smooth and continuous line work, and the lines are usually the same weight and there are hardly ever shadows. Charles Hatfield tells us that this style of drawing used to be more common in children's cartoons, but has since made its way up the age ladder. In the case of Sabrina, the ligne claire style leaves us with zero shadows and very little emotion in the characters' faces. And why would this have been done? Perhaps because emotional isolation is running throughout the pages of this book, and what better way to make your readers wonder what the characters are feeling than to give them almost zero facial expressions. This lack of facial expressions is almost constant throughout the entire story, which is why when we do get a reaction, it's even more emphasized. This page here is a great example. Teddy has reached his limit and snaps at Calvin, and we're able to see just how mad he has gotten. The decisions made about color have a similar intent as the drawing style does. Typically, ligne claire drawings consist of bright and popping colors. Here are the examples from earlier again. Look at the bright oranges in the sky and the vibrancy of the colors in their clothing. Now let's flash back to Sabrina, and it's just so bland. Even in a house with blue walls and colorful bed pillows, there's no feeling behind it. And why? This is the question I found myself asking the most throughout my reading of Sabrina. Similarly to the lack of facial expressions, I believe that the intention behind muting the colors of this story is to try to remove as much emotional influence as possible. Colors have a certain emotional attachment to them. Red for love, blue for sadness, that kind of thing. So by desaturating the colors to a certain extent, any color associations that might typically be made are eliminated. Again, by doing this, Nick Jonasso is able to successfully give off a sense of emotional isolation. Throughout reading Sabrina, there is never any danger visible shown in this book. We never see Sabrina actually get killed, and we don't see any other harm done. But why are we so on edge? There's always a sense that something could happen, and that is the way that Nick Jonasso designed the pages. Pages 135 through 140 are absolutely haunting. Teddy, a man who we've learned is not 100% mentally sound, has found a weapon. Will he hurt himself? Will he hurt someone else? Calvin ends up coming home from work, and he has just been in an uncomfortable situation at the gas station and is already a little on guard. He is now standing inches away from a man with a weapon. A door and a gutter is what's separating them. But nothing happens. There is no plot here. Again, it's a boring story, but your heart is racing because of the way that Nick Jonasso was able to design the colors and the panels to set up the sense of danger. This takes me to the page layout and design aspect of this video. The page layouts given to the reader in Sabrina are, wait for it, boring. I hope my descriptions are not getting too repetitive, but if you look on the screen, here are the first two pages of the story. We're given a larger panel that is used to introduce Sabrina herself. This is a tactic often used by Nick Jonasso to introduce characters or other locations. Let's turn the page now and look at the next 9 pages. They are all the same. Each page has 12 equally sized boxes that show a young woman going about her day and getting startled by her sister. The consistent 12 cubes per page gives the reader a sense of mundane and boringness. This conflicts with the paranoia in the drawings and also contrasts the murder that's to come. Moving to the next few pages, we see our first variation in page style. As we continue to move through the book, we see a lot of variations, but all the panels continue to be square and keep the same margins at the edges of the full page. In this story, there is no play outside the box. Everything is always contained within the 4 edges present, and oftentimes the smallest panels are just giving us a view of a single character, all alone. These are all perfectly executed examples of isolation. The movement from block to block is something that feels measured in an almost rhythmic staccato. It's the opposite of what we saw in Joe Sacco's Paying the Land and John Lewis's March. These books played with boundaries and ran images together, creating more of a smooth flow. Every image in Sabrina is its own separate image. One of my favorite variations in this story comes from a double-page spread on pages 20 and 21. These pages have an equal amount of panels, and one page is a reflection of the other. This creates a V shape through the middle of the page out of the larger sized panels that goes across both of the pages. This helps guide your eye, and it also implies a sense of movement, which is consistent with the plot at this point in the story, because Teddy is settling in as Calvin is going out to work. Remember earlier when I mentioned that Calvin is a boundary technician? What an ironic job for someone who is trapped within the borders of a story to have. This is a deliberate move made by Nick Genasso to further push the idea of isolation. Not to mention, as seen on page 29, Calvin works in a cubicle with no decorations or anything that mentions what he does outside of work. One of the only times we see a softened smile on Calvin's face is on pages 47 through 48 when he calls his ex-wife and daughter on the phone. Something interesting about these pages is that when the panels cut back and forth from Calvin to Cece, the colors within the characters and their backgrounds seem to be inverses of each other, providing a pattern. There's another pattern that runs throughout the story, and it's found on both pages 157 and also the inside of both the front and the back covers. On page 157, the pattern is found in the background behind Sandra, which is Sabrina's sister, as she's in a diner after speaking at an open mic. The inclusion of the pattern on page 157 is interesting because this design is not seen anywhere else on that page. Sandra is sitting in a booth against a window, which means that this design was placed in the background for our viewing and not as a diegetic material in the story. I think that the pattern is really cool, and the longer you look at it, the more things that you notice. At first, to me, it looks like a bunch of stars aligned together, but then when I look closer, I notice that it's really a bunch of stars within boxes, connected by boxes that are rotated at a 45-degree angle. So why did Nick Genasso use this pattern as the background of the panel that serves as an introduction to Sandra? I think it's because at this point in the story, Sandra has just spoken on an open mic night about the messages she's been receiving from strangers, which have made her feel trapped and alone. To leave you with one final example, this is page 116. I feel that this page is a perfect example of all the aspects I've talked about today all blended together. One small thing I want to hit on with this page is the representation of a childlike radio seen in Teddy's possession throughout the story. This childlike radio adds a childish feel to the conspiracy theories coming out of it, and it's just another design aspect that goes further into the story's plot. To recap, this book is boring at times in the plot, but it is most often boring in its look, and that was the intent. Nick Genasso used the drawing style of Lynette Claire and desaturated colors to his advantage. By doing so, he was able to remove emotion from the characters as well as their surroundings. And with this emotional isolation in place, Nick Genasso is able to make the emotions that are shown seem even more dramatic. These moments often come at the times with the highest paranoia, and they serve as the tipping point. I hope that this video has been informative and that you've learned a thing or two. Thanks for watching.